Welcome to my channel Arin Signal. The first thing people noticed about Cadet Arin Voss wasn't his size, or his quiet demeanor, or even the faint scar that traced from his jawline to the base of his neck. It was the way he moved. Careful, measured, like every step had already been calculated before it happened. On a station like Helios Prime Military Academy, where species from across the coalition trained together, movement told a story. Some cadets walked with arrogance, others with nervous energy. Arin walked like gravity itself was optional, which made him stand out. And standing out, in a place full of fragile egos and competitive minds, was never a good thing. Especially when you came from a death world. Helios Prime floated in orbit around a gas giant, its artificial rings glowing with training arenas, dormitories, and simulation chambers. It was one of the most prestigious academies in known space, producing elite officers for the coalition fleet. But prestige didn't eliminate cruelty. It just made it more sophisticated. The rumors had started the moment Arin arrived. Human, deathworlder, they're unstable, they're violent, they don't feel pain the same way. Most of it was nonsense, exaggerated from old data archives and half-true war stories. Humans weren't monsters. They weren't unstoppable. They were just adaptable. Too adaptable. That made people uncomfortable, and uncomfortable people often lashed out. The 7 cadets who took issue with Arin were known collectively as Squad Kesh. They weren't official, but everyone knew them. Strong, coordinated, and deeply territorial. At their center was Varric, tall, broad-shouldered, his species-plated skin giving him a natural armor that made him nearly untouchable in sparring matches. He wasn't the smartest cadet, but he didn't need to be. He had presence, and 6 others who backed him without question. They noticed Arin immediately. At first, it was curiosity, then irritation, then something darker. It started small. A missed seat in the mess hall. A locker mysteriously reassigned. Training assignments that paired Arin against opponents twice his mass. Nothing overt enough to report. Nothing blatant enough to punish. Just pressure, testing, watching. And Arin did nothing. He didn't complain. He didn't retaliate. He didn't even react, which only made it worse. "You're letting them push you," said Lyra, one of the few cadets who spoke to him without hesitation. She leaned against the railing overlooking the lower training rings, her iridescent eyes tracking movement below. Arin stood beside her, hands behind his back. "I'm observing," he replied. "That's a polite way of saying you're ignoring it." "Not ignoring, measuring." Lyra gave him a sideways look. "Measuring what?" Arin didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, "How far they'll go." They went far. Far enough to believe they were in control. The incident happened 3 weeks into the cycle. Late evening, training ring C12. Unofficial hours. No instructors. No oversight. Just enough isolation for something to happen, and not be immediately stopped. Arin had been scheduled for endurance drills. Solo. Or so he thought. When he entered the ring, the doors sealed behind him with a heavy clang. And they were already there. All 7 of them, spread out, blocking every exit. "Well," Varric said, stepping forward. "The quiet one finally joins us." Arin didn't turn immediately. He simply stood there, taking in the room. 7 opponents. Different species. Different strengths. One with extended reach. 2 built for speed. One with reinforced limbs. And Varric, at the center. Arin turned slowly. "You altered the schedule," he said. It wasn't a question. Varric smiled. "Smart, but not smart enough to avoid this." "Why?" Arin asked. That seemed to amuse them. "Why?" One of the others laughed. "Because you don't belong here. You're unpredictable," another added. "Dangerous. Or maybe," Varric said, stepping closer, We just want to see if the stories are true." Arin's gaze flicked from one to the next. No fear, no anger, just calculation. "You're violating Academy protocol," he said calmly. Varric shrugged. "No witnesses. That's not entirely accurate." "Oh." Varric spread his arms. "Who's watching?" Arin didn't answer, because the answer didn't matter. The first attack came from the left. Fast. Too fast for most cadets to react. But Arin wasn't. Most cadets. He shifted half a step. Just enough. The strike missed. Before the attacker could recover, Arin moved. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just precise. A single motion, his hand snapping upward, connecting with a pressure point beneath the attacker's arm. The effect was immediate. The cadet collapsed. Not unconscious, but unable to move. 1 second. One down. The room froze. Even Varric blinked. "Lucky hit," someone muttered. Arin exhaled slowly. "No," he said. "Not luck." The second and third came together. Coordinated. One high, one low. A classic pincer. Arin stepped forward instead of back. It broke their timing instantly. His elbow drove into the first attacker's midsection. Not hard, but precisely placed. The air left their lungs in a violent gasp. Before the second could adjust, Arin pivoted. A sweep. Clean. Efficient. The cadet hit the floor with a crack. 3 down. 5 seconds. Now there was silence. Not the confident silence from before. This one had weight. Doubt. "What are you doing?" Varric snapped at his squad. "He's just one." He didn't finish, because Arin moved again. The fourth attacker tried to retreat. Instinct. Too late. Arin closed the distance in 2 steps. A controlled strike to the shoulder joint. Dislocation. The cadet screamed. Arin stepped back immediately. He wasn't brutal. He was efficient. 4 down. Panic spread. It was subtle, but it was there. These weren't amateurs. They were trained, skilled, and they were losing. Badly. The remaining 3 hesitated. That was their biggest mistake. Arin didn't hesitate. He advanced. The 5th attacker swung wildly. Fear-driven. Predictable. Arin slipped inside the arc of the strike, grabbed the limb, and redirected the force. The cadet collided with the wall. Hard. 5 down. Now it was just Varric. And one other. The smallest of the group. The one who hadn't moved yet. Together, Varric growled. They charged. For a moment, it looked like it might work. 2 angles. 2 different attack patterns. Something complex. Something unpredictable. Arin smiled. Just slightly. He moved. Not faster. Not stronger. Smarter. He used Varric. Redirected his momentum. Turned his mass into a weapon. Varric slammed into his own teammate. Both went down. And just like that, it was over. 7 bullies. 7 trained cadets. Neutralized. In seconds. The room was filled with the sound of labored breathing. Groans. Shock. Arin stood in the center. Uninjured. Untouched. Varric tried to get up. He failed. His eyes burned with something between rage and disbelief. "What are you?" he demanded. Arin looked at him. Really looked at him. Then he said, quietly, "Adaptable." The doors opened. Not because of luck. Not because of chance. But because someone had been watching. Instructor Hale stepped into the ring. Tall. Human. Older. Far less surprised than anyone else. "I was wondering how long it would take," he said. Varric stared at him. "You knew." Hale nodded. "I know everything that happens in my academy." His gaze shifted to Arin. "And I know what a Deathworld cadet is capable of." Medical teams rushed in. The injured were treated. None of the damage was permanent. Arin had made sure of that. Every strike, every movement, measured, controlled. Later, In the quiet of the observation deck, Lyra found him again. "You could have reported them," she said. Arin nodded. "Yes. You could have hurt them worse." "Yes." She studied him. "Why didn't you?" Arin looked out at the stars. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, "Because this wasn't about punishment." "It wasn't." "No." He turned to her. "It was about understanding." "Understanding what?" Arin's gaze was steady. "That fear creates aggression. That assumption creates conflict. And that sometimes," he paused, just slightly, "the fastest way to end both is clarity." Word spread. Of course it did. Stories always did. But they changed, shifted, evolved. They no longer said, "Humans are unstable." They said, "Humans are precise." They no longer said, "They're dangerous." They said, "They choose when to be." And Squad Kesh. They were quieter after that. Not humiliated, not broken, just corrected. As for Arin Voss, he went back to training. Back to observing. Back to measuring. Because on a station full of future soldiers, he wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't even the most feared. But he understood something the others didn't. Something simple. Something dangerous. On a death world, you don't survive by being the biggest threat. You survive by ending threats. Before they even understand the fight has begun. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.